Now, banks say they are struggling to find green projects to invest in. Some individual banks have as much as $32 million in their vaults looking for green projects. Now, the Dean of the University of Ghana Business School, Professor Justice Baole, says there are currently very few experts in the green finance space to attract funds. Odilia Ntiauma has been speaking to him and the head of corporate banking at Bank about the challenge.
We seem to have all the time some level of blueprint, either in policy or in regulation, but it's always comes to implementation. And you, through some of these projects, can use your platform for advocacy. What would you say are the critical needs in this space for us, one, to put in policy and probably even in regulation that will help Ghana to leapfrog, to be a leader in the green financing space, and of course, issues relating to sustainability?
And it's a very, very important question you just asked, because often we are very quick at coming up with blueprint policy documents, and many times the show had ended after celebrating the launch of a particular blueprint here or there. And so the question you ask is extremely important. And I think that when we had the workshops, one of the critical things that had happened in there was the realization that even though we have these blueprints, the implementation has been completely disjointed, to the extent that actors do not think that there's an enabling environment to allow for the practice of what it is we have put in policy. And I'll give you a few examples. One, till date, you would have very limited numbers of consultants who have the capacity to be able to develop a green project from beginning to end and to get it funded. And that's a very important aspect of the whole game, because if you look at the African continent, a lot of the organizations that we have in Ghana, there are a lot of them that are just micro enterprises who do not have themselves the capacity to even put together a winnable proposal. So the skill sets are completely missing. There's also the support of sector-specific support programs. So you're likely to get a generic policy statement that says Ghana wants to encourage green financing. But in terms of specific sectors, when people are going to be entering into specific sectors, you see that there is not much more detailed guidance on how people can get into particular sectors. And I'll give you an example. There are a number of recycling companies in Ghana, but as you begin to engage them, you see that they are completely frustrated. And the reason is that even though you hear the fanfare about support, when you begin to take the steps, you see that there's completely no support for you. So that the other portion of it is how we can actually ensure that at sector levels, there can be specific guidance and specific support. The other thing is that funding in Ghana is largely short-term funding. And a lot of the green finance projects or green business projects are projects that take a minimum of 5 years to realize. And if you are going to be getting a loan or some facility that you are going to be working and paying back within a cycle of 1 year, that makes it extremely difficult. Meanwhile, the funding agencies, the banks, are still holding on to the commercial ideas of wanting to fund and make money within a short period of time. And of course, that's for their business, but for the sustainability of the sector and for the benefits that come with green businesses and green financing projects, you want to be able to calculate the profits, what we call the profit, in other terms rather than the financial bottom line, and so that you can extend your benefits profile to the triple bottom line, for example, and ensure that a lot more value is given to society as much as you give to the players in there. So these are some of the challenges that you can find in there. I hope that there will be a lot more conversation and to bring the actors into the realization that apart from survival as private entities and financial institutions, there is a responsibility for businesses to be able to guarantee the continuous supply of their raw materials. And if that would happen, which would continue to give the financial institutions the businesses they want, then they must be willing to put in money to ensure that the green environment, the climate change, all of the issues related to our survival on the planet Earth is properly supported.
Faro, please.
No, thanks very much. I think what is actually critical or needed in sustaining these kind of initiatives or activities is greater advocacy. We need to do a lot more advocacy to make people understand that doing business in a sustainable manner is not just good for the environment of a society, but it is also good from a kind of the profit perspective. I think the whole issue is, what can we do to move away from the current approaches of policing businesses to do business in a green manner to a way in which businesses themselves would understand that this is actually good for themselves, not just for society, but also from the profit-making perspective, so that we move away from the idea of policing to voluntary action. And that's one key reason why we incorporated this idea of a green champions event. We call them champions because we see them as potential advocates. So we want to bring them to the forum to tell us what their experiences have been, what their challenges have been, and what kind of message do they have for other businesses.
Tell me about how your climate change or climate-related facilities, how they're doing currently. The last time we spoke, you said that you had about $30 million sitting there. Sometimes people are not even coming for them. Tell us exactly what's available, what people can come for and all that.
Okay, so I'm right about 30, it's actually 32.5 million that we've raised from 2 developmental finance institutions. The interesting thing is, with our knowledge of green, we sat down and we thought we had done this for 12 companies. Very excited about it. But one of the financiers was good enough to offer us technical assistance. By the time they were done with the assessment, we had 2 left. So it means that all those that we have called green are not necessarily what you categorize as green lending. And so we haven't done as much as we wish we could have done by now. What we are making the technical assistance do now for us is help us build the capacity to be able to identify a true green product or project from what we think is green. Because it's interesting, I've been in several discussions on green and green funding and green financing, and you find that even the people who are your resource persons have a gap in understanding what really green financing is.
And that's a conversation on green financing. There's so much money in there, but just as the banks are saying, they're struggling to find projects to invest in. So if you're an entrepreneur, you should be thinking about it.